Hi everyone, you're listening to the Vialucci podcast, uncensored and completely unedited discussions about life and everything in it. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. It's starting to get a bit more professional. We're doing hellos.
Usually he just jinxed it.
Usually he just cut in as we're talking, and then you never really know where the show's going to start. Naomi Gryn. It's become a thing on the show. I've been asking people.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Where the surnames come from, and yours is one of them.
Okay, so
Is it Gryn? Gryn?
It's Gryn.
How do you say it?
I say Gryn so people can hear Gryn.
Yeah.
My father used to say green, so it sounded a bit English.
Green.
It got the Y curiously because he was stateless for many years. He finally got a citizenship in the late 50s when he was in America, and he wanted his passport quickly so that he could go and visit his mother in then Czechoslovakia, who he hadn't seen for a long time, and he had to get a birth certificate. So he applied to the Soviet Union, which had then taken over the area he'd grown up in, and they sent him back the birth certificate, and they didn't know U umlaut from Y, so that's how the Y got there.
I didn't know if it was like a Welsh thing or something. The Y was silent. Gryn. Yeah. So, what do you class yourself? Filmmaker and journalist?
Writer, filmmaker.
If you had to pick one, filmmaker.
I mean, storyteller.
Oh, yeah. I suppose.
I'm always looking for new stories and interesting ways to tell them.
So tell us some of the, in a paragraph, some of the stuff you've done. You've done a couple of documentaries, radio, various shows.
Written work, published a couple of books.
Yeah.
What type of stories interest you? What are the stories you want to tell? Curious.
At any one time? Or at this moment in time?
Okay, so it changes then, does that?
It's moving all the time.
Okay, excellent. So you're not sort of one of these people who just like, I want to tell the plight of the coal miners and that's my thing and I'm just going to stick with that. No.
Although a couple of years ago, I received a letter telling me that I hadn't paid my funeral expenses scheme ever, and that if I didn't back pay 20 years, that I would have to pay £15,000 if I wanted to get buried. And that triggered me into a couple of years of looking at Britain's changing attitudes towards death and dying.
Which is one of the subjects we wanted to talk about. So we might as well start with that.
Good segue. That's professional.
Didn't even see it coming.
You see. Okay.
I was thinking years ago that where was I? Highgate. Is there a big
Highgate Cemetery?
Yeah. Okay. Right. And I thought, is this going to be because of space is now an issue? Will future generations go? There's more dead bodies taking up property space than live bodies. Before it sort of went, no, we can't do this anymore. But then what do? You can't sort of.
I swear I think it was I know the Christian Church, the Church of England only sort of okayed cremations.
Yeah. Because
before they had to be buried, I think, until I think it was sometime in the
1880s.
Yeah, I think it was late Victorian era. Yeah. And until then, you had to be buried because there was a line in the Bible about you'll be raised living the dead and judge everyone. So the idea was that you had to be popped down and then you'd magically be raised like some kind of Romero zombie or
disease or something. You had to be body had to be buried.
No.
Well, that does play into the story because in the 18th century, you had to be buried by a vicar in a churchyard, and the churchyards were just overflowing and there was a lot of cholera, and the bodies were to such a depth that really, if there was a heavy rain, you'd start to see limbs pop out. It could slide.
I was in Devon, and we was doing this. There's like a Halloween walk thing at the end, and they were going to Devon, and this prostitute died there, and she haunted the lover that they couldn't be together. And I was thinking, this is very storytelling-ish. But anyway, there's a lot of churches there, small churches, with rocks on the outside that you walk along, and they're bulging. And they said, because the supposed to be a certain amount of space between the bodies, but there was such a little amount of space that they're basically inches apart, and the walls are starting to bulge with the mass of them in there. So when I was in Highgate, do you think that there'll ever come a time where we go, look, we can't keep burying people. This makes no sense.
Well, Highgate Cemetery is a really interesting example. I live really close to it and love taking visitors around, and have become it's real, like it's magnet. It's just London's history in miniature.
Yeah.
And there it's now one of the most expensive places in Britain to be buried because there's so little space. And the amazing chap who runs it, Ian Dungerville, he's currently pushing through a private members bill to change the use so that they can reclaim, for instance, plots that haven't been visited for 75 years.
Right.
There's an awful lot of stones where you can't even read. The people who bought plots in perpetuity, they thought, they would be very disappointed to know that you can't even read the names of their loved ones anymore.
Yes, I mean, what's the rules? Is there a legal line of like, if nobody complains, if there's no families to complain, then we can just.
They've got to change the law on it.
Oh, right.
So that's what he's applying for.
And what would it be? What would the law change?
So that he'd like to keep it as a working cemetery.
Yeah.
And so he'd like to be able to continue. At the moment, I think they can do something like 80 funerals a year.
Yeah.
Or yes, I think that's the right figure. And it's £30,000 to get a plot there.
Really?
And you don't even know how. You have to be, you can't apply for one within so many weeks of your death. And, there are a lot of restrictions on who qualifies for a plot.
Real estate's very expensive in London.
Even in death.
But you can get them, and it's very moving. People feel powerfully moved. I was the rogue rabbi at a friend's father's graveside recently, and I really did understand why these two sisters needed a space for their dad. And in fact, he's in an area that they're reclaiming that was where they previously had paupers' graves or common graves. And for instance, there was around there the graves of the lost girls of Highgate, they were called, these child prostitutes who were taken into an institution in Highgate, and probably had diseases and things and died young. So that area has been reclaimed.
So it sounds so alien to me when we're talking about a plot for where you're going to die. Explain it to me in a sort of normal human being. What is the pull towards, I don't understand want to be next to your mother, I get that. But saying like, I want to be there.
I'm with you too. I mean,
I'm struggling
given that we have so little space.
And when you're saying £30,000, you go, so I'm not talking
for
a
a dead
couple
person.
£100. Yeah.
And
if you live there, I understand the nuances, but to say, no, I want to be there.
I mean, I don't know. When my grandpa died, he asked for his ashes to be scattered on the beach because we have a beach house, and it's, he loved it down there, and he spent a lot of time, and it's, very, very nice, beautiful beach. And
where is that?
That's down Sussex, Camber Beach. It's right. Yeah, very nice. Very lucky we are too. But he wanted to have his ashes scattered there. So we did that illegally without them.
Oh, right.
We should have actually, I think, told the council we did.
I forgot you need
and and my aunt's a lay preacher. We had to walk out. It was one of those things, a windy day, and we walked out and we were trying to find like a bit of space away from like anyone else.
Yeah. So it wouldn't fly in your face.
Because we like the Big Lebowski. We didn't want a Big Lebowski moment where we chuck the ashes and it all just ends up there like that. It was like really windy as well. I shouldn't laugh. But like we were trying to do it with respect, what I mean? And like bloody people because of walking their dog next to us, and we're like, oh, for goodness sake, come on. So we had to wait for them to go, and then we just having this ceremony. My aunt's a lay preacher, so she was doing a bit of stuff, and she had some robes on and stuff, so we had to look around and quickly take a jacket off and do the bits, and then get it done. But yeah, I mean,
surely that's a better way.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
cremation also has issues because it doesn't actually do any good for the world. It's not fertilizer. I'm relieved to hear that you only use the equivalent of 2 fuel tanks of petrol in a cremation.
You've pulled it back a bit for me now.
I imagined it was more than that.
Yeah.
There are issues in a cremation if, for instance, the deceased has had a breast implant. I remember hearing stories of silicon pools
exploding or something. Yeah, cool.
Oh, this is taking a turn.
And of course, if there are any mercury fillings, that releases mercury into the atmosphere. Then there are
replacement hip or something like
that. Yeah.
Then there are the natural burials that one thinks, oh yeah, like organic, that's good. But that has a problem because the anaerobic heat given off as the corpse is decomposing is not great for the roots of the trees above it. So I've been looking at...
What's an actual... But aren't they all...
Oh, this is just when you don't use a box.
Oh, just the body.
You just put it into the ground and allow it to do its thing. So I've been looking at wholesome ways of disposing of corpses.
Is this a comedy skit you've got, or is this real?
This is real.
So I don't know whether to laugh or get ready for... okay, right.
There should be a humour in it.
Right.
People have been very imaginative.
Right,
There's the mushroom suit, and then you put the corpse into this fungus suit, and it decomposes. It's sort of withered away with fungi.
It works, but I think in a human way, that it just doesn't sound right.
I just imagine a little 3-piece suit with made of
mushroom. I thought you said soup. I was like, what? Are you going to eat the... Could that be... Oh, no.
My
Soil and Green.
My favourite... Oh, God.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually,
clarify that reference.
Well, Soil and Green was the late 70s Charlton Heston.
It's a reference for over 90-year-old listeners.
So if you're younger than... you
if you've still got a poster of Charlton Heston on your wall.
Yes. Charlton Heston was a bad person who was in good films, in the thoughtful films in the 70s. And yes, it was ultimately it came out that Soil and Green was people. It's people.
Did I send you the picture?
Food shortage, they were eating.
I was in Sainsbury's and there's a drink called Soylent.
Oh yeah, no, there is. Yeah,
that is really.
I mean, how naive are you?
They haven't done their due diligence.
I mean, basic. That's in Sainsbury's on a drink. You didn't just Google it.
No, well,
and it's a drink. It's a.
Although it had a Y in it, didn't it?
Oh, did it? Oh, right. Okay, maybe because I didn't.
Solent.
There is Soylent Green, and you can buy, and it is a food substance, and it is it's like sort of protein start bar or
Unless
whatever.
They're actually going for that.
Do you think they know? Do you think they've figured that out, the connection?
I think they know.
You think they've gone for it?
Well, it's either ironic,
yeah,
or they're just getting that copyright set for later. I don't know. Like, getting the factory set up just so when people are more used to it,
maybe they thought it'd be PR. Someone would say, "Oh, look, that's from the thing," and then it'd be like a story. Because you never can judge people. People will make themselves look bad just for the PR.
That brand recognition.
Yeah.
Honestly. Even
they don't care.
No such thing as bad publicity. You know what I mean?
There was the Avatar, when the first Avatar film came out, they had, there's some story, just, suddenly it's on everywhere. It's on Yahoo and some radio is talking about it. And it was people saying, oh, this is racist because they're clearly supposed to be people from Africa and blah, 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 because of, the way they looked. And
indigenous people.
Yeah. And then it turned out, oh no, they set that up. They put that story out there. You go, so you put the story out to slag yourselves off because there's no moral code. Like that's like a weak, ugly thing to do.
I was just going to say, there is a Cyberdyne Systems.
As in Terminator.
As in the company that developed the Terminator technology and led to...
And there is a company called Cyberdyne.
There is actually, I think it might have been formed after the Terminator.
Right.
Because they saw that and was like, that's a cool name.
Oh,
God. We want to be connected with a company that led to nearly the wiping out of all mankind, basically in a global war against artificial intelligence. That's the type of that goes with our brand, and this is where we're going to go with. Yeah,
there was a type of lift company, and I've forgotten the name of it, and it was something to do with the Holocaust, and they had to change their name. Have you ever seen it? Was on a lot of lifts. I can't remember the bloody name of it now. But anyway, so
I did some research this year into the machine used in Auschwitz to tattoo prisoners.
Okay.
And discovered that the company that manufactured this machine, they actually stopped using the machine in 1942 because it wasn't as efficient as just taking needles on a bar and doing it manually. And so the company that took the commission to design this machine, and it was definitely for tattooing humans, they were then bought by Krups, which I think about quite often as I'm grinding my coffee beans.
Let's get off this subject. But
Bayer are a big company they have I think their European headquarters, they're not their world because I think they're a German company, but certainly I think their UK headquarters just down the road from me, and I know lots of people who've worked for them, and I've had job offers from them, and I refused
just based
categorically refused.
Just on branding.
Nope. Well, no, because I mean they were the company that made Zyklon B.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
I thought it was something. Oh, okay.
No, so
there was a Zyklon A, wasn't there? But it was
probably
Yeah,
I don't know. It's chemical, isn't it? But yeah, so just it's crazy what these companies are still about. You know what I mean?
well, the company,
and they've done awful stuff since. They did these awful. They got into awful trouble with because they were selling gone off expired medication to African nations and stuff, and changing the sell by dates and stuff. So they've been, and they also had one of their former CEOs was he was convicted at Nuremberg, and then after that, about 10 years after, he got out, and then they hired him as their CEO.
Yeah. Just if you've got your talent, money doesn't care. Yeah.
What?
It was like Operation Paperclip when the Americans got all the Germans out that had worked on the bomb and all that. They just popped a little NASA hat on them, and that was the end of that.
I don't know. Like, I tell people this because I was talking to someone who worked for Bay, and I explained this to them, and she was going, yeah, okay, yeah. It's like I'm talking about, I don't know, moon made of cheese or something. You know, I sound like a crackpot, but I'm like, no, this is real. You know what I mean? I don't know.
So, what were the other things you kept about death? You had the mushroom, not mushroom. Did you say?
Yes.
Mushroom?
Oh, so I know which way I'd like to go.
Yeah.
Although it shouldn't really be my decision,
Yeah.
but the people around.
Yeah, right, yeah.
There's a company in Seattle called Resumation, and their idea is you take the corpse, you put some wood chips, put it into pod, and 30 days later you bring out 2 wheelbarrows full of really good quality compost.
No, I couldn't do that. No, that's too. Unless you're the person doing it.
I think their price point's too high. It's $5,000.
It's that thing between sort of how it feels and the use of it, because I like the idea of fertilizer and I like that. But then you go, well, somebody.
If you're
I've got to not see it.
If you're a farmer and your horse dies, you put it on the edge of a field, you cover it in wood chips, and it decomposes.
Oh, it's a thing already. Okay, didn't realise.
So we treat humans with such a different attitude.
And why do you like that one over just putting you in the ground?
Because then it's useful.
If you put you in the ground.
No, I think of the use of put it in the ground, and you'll disturb the roots above you.
I thought it had benefits. No.
No, the heat given off as it
decomposes
will disturb the...
Charles, how do you like to die? I never thought this would be on a podcast.
Surrounded by my family on a big pile of money.
Not in pain.
At the age of 110 or something. No.
You haven't thought about it.
Ashes scatted on the beach.
Yeah, that seems...
That seems
what was the downside of the ashes?
It could blow in your face. Using the fuel,
right,
the equivalent of fuel,
not
being
I was all
useful.
for it until you said that. I hadn't thought about the fuel thing. Natural fire, still carbon.
But what really bothers me is how it's a distress purchase. We'll all only ever have to arrange a couple of funerals in our lives, and we'll be upset when we have to do it because somebody you care about has just died.
Yeah.
And at that point, funeral directors have you over a barrel because they can tell you in a state of distress, oh no, you don't really respect your grandmother unless you buy the flowers and you have the hearse and... so we have all this protocol around what is respectful.
What happens now, though, if you die and you got no one? They find the body?
Councils have to take it on.
Bury?
They do cremation mostly.
Right,
and so I looked at the council protocol around here, and they use a cemetery up in Finchley, the Share one.
Right, yeah.
And so they're done on a sort of Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock.
Quite a lot.
Yeah. Or if somebody's homeless and they go and they haven't got anybody.
Because I know a couple of coppers, and they say there's a lot of you going to somebody's house because there's a smell, and some old people just died, didn't have any family, and they just found them there. The other interesting thing she said she doesn't matter. You could go in there, and it's an old lady sat there, didn't have any friends. Neighbours said she was quite a loner, and she's there. She's died, clearly sitting watching the TV or whatever. And she said you still have to treat it as a murder scene. She said, everything's a murder until you convince yourself it's not. So you have to go in. So this is a murder scene. Let me look at everything. And then you can determine that, okay, this definitely wasn't a murder. She died of old age. But you don't go in going, oh, there's an old lady who died. You think everything was a murder scene. And I thought, okay, that's quite interesting. You don't assume anything.
Yeah.
Let's go away from murder and death. And
normally it's me and him like getting dark. So it's refreshing to have a guest on who's...
We don't know you that well, so we're going to try and protect
he's going to start off with hardcore stuff. We like it. It's good. Yeah.
You had a question that you want to bring up about our education system producing a generation of snowflakes, which I wasn't expecting because I thought you'd be quite lefty. So it's common sense is it's an unusual thing nowadays.
So I have a 9-year-old kid in primary school, and my partner and I, if we have a meeting place, we both think that there shouldn't be groupthink, and it has been shocking to see how the education system works, really, and how the poor people running the schools are expected to bring all this citizenship stuff in.
So we more or less here don't know anything, but so what is going on?
Well, I'll give you an example from this past term. My kid was sitting, comforting a friend who was being harassed by another kid, and she said to her friend, she said, "I wouldn't want to play with someone who was so mental." And another girl sitting there reported her to the year head for using the word mental instead of mental health disability.
Oh, come on.
And before you knew it, it was escalated to the top offence bar being suspended.
Yeah.
My kid had started hyperventilating, thought she was going to miss sports day the next day, thought I was going to be really cross, didn't really know what she'd done wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
We were watching Harry Potter 4 yesterday and Goblet of Fire, and I've actually taken a screenshot of Harry Potter saying, "That's so mental," which I'm planning to send the headmaster. But so anyway, I took it up with him. I thought this is really interesting because he had recently told the kids that they had become a telling school. And he had told them that they had to be very careful. It was about bullying. It was about protecting children from bullying, which sounds good. But it means that these 9-year-olds now think they're these words that they're not supposed to use, like snitch, which is, of course, the name of the ball in a game of Quidditch. I'm about to go into a
so
JK.
You just brought up the whole box set to defend the legal defence. Take it up with her, not me.
And so I took it up with the headmaster, and when I went to see him, he said to me that the other girl had felt unsafe hearing my child use the word mental. That was my first problem.
Who was the kid? Why would that be in their head?
She's a nasty little female dog on hind legs.
But you shouldn't be able to get. But you shouldn't be able to get to that point at that age. That's something that should come with age.
But she also told my kid that my kid came in a beautiful blue beret one day, and she said to her that she couldn't wear it because it was French. Because she wasn't French.
Yeah, where'd you
so
get
she
that
saw
from,
it as cultural appropriation. And
my
she,
God.
as a Lebanese child, feels that she has the right to wear a beret.
Yeah.
But my child, who is sort of mix of things, but not French, can't.
But this is at 9 years old.
That's what I mean by snowflakes.
I'd understand if it kicked in at sort of 16 and you're being right on and you'd watch some film. But how can you know that at 9?
Possibly kids that young. I think that's them picking it up from parents, because sometimes you hear a young kid talking, maybe even a bit younger, so the 6 or 7, or 5 or 6, 7, and you can hear their parents. It's things that their parents have said.
Be really full on for a 9-year-old to hold that in them.
Yeah, well, kids pick these things up and they repeat.
And then
you have to be carefully taught.
But when you get past that, you get to the teacher stage. The teacher didn't go, "Okay, look, you shouldn't have said it," and they just moved it on. It got into a thing.
Teachers took it very seriously.
Really?
And then when watching Harry Potter, just listening to where the world's got to on J.K. Rowling, and that, of course, is a real generational divide.
Yeah.
So all the women of my age are with J.K. I'll probably get cancelled for saying that. And I see now that they've had the 25th anniversary of Harry Potter, and the one person who wasn't invited to the party was the author, J.K. Rowling. And I also picked up on a piece last week that the Quidditch leagues, because humans who can't fly on broomsticks play Quidditch too.
Right.
They've taken all the cancelling so seriously for a woman for suggesting that people not born a woman can't have children, that they're now trying to change the name so that they can distance themselves from Rowling. So,
There's so much going on that you just go, I'm done. That's me. I'm going to move off. You lot deal with whatever I'm going to another planet. It's too much. I don't know which bit to what? Hang on, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Who's doing what? It is like I'm going to wake up and go, oh yeah, that was a dream. Like it's meant. It's not real to have all this
fussing about pronouns.
But how can you live like that? I understand if for a 15-year-old you're getting into that sort of thing, but adults, and then you talked about legal and getting in trouble and suspended. You go, but why
people
are you taking
losing
this
their
seriously?
jobs.
Yeah, but
And it's not even the people who are being cancelled at the top that I worry about. Like Steve Pinker, the writer, came into a lot of trouble for using the phrase urban violence, and that was seen as dog whistling. And it's not that he got attacked because he's so accomplished, so well known, he'll get through it. It's the fact that younger academics then will see that and that will chill them. They'll chill themselves, they'll censor themselves, or writers who would write about rounded experiences will refrain because they can see what's happening if people do speak their minds.
But this is fascism. I mean, it's a literal tenet of fascism is you can't say certain things.
I think it's neo-Marxism, but without the dialectical reasoning that we had in the last Marxist revolutions.
But if you just stand back from it and just say you're limiting so on some of the YouTube podcasts I watch, it's now creeped in over the last year. You can't say certain words, and it started with like the N-word. That would bring up a flag, and it's things that bring up flags. So now, as a norm, there's not saying. And I said this years ago. If you ban one word, then that's it. You've banned words. Now it's just who's in charge. That's all it is.
Scrabble, competitive Scrabble.
God,
did you pick up on this story? They have now banned a whole list of words, which include Jesuit.
What's that?
The Catholic.
Church, Jesuit.
Include puff. So you can't any longer sit on a puff.
I forgot about that word. So they brought it back in.
That's an old, that's
old.
And you can't use the word Jew.
Why is that?
So they've taken away from people like me my own word for my own self.
But is that's not
because as a verb to Jew somebody would be insulting.
Oh, God, you're grasping again. Do you know what I mean? You're bringing up all that's.
Well, that's only if you see I disagree with the underlying premise of that because that's presupposing that's a bad thing to be.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Like
that presupposes that something about Jewishness is negative. To call someone that will label.
Well,
you know what I mean. So that's yeah.
I mean, as an insult, it meant to cheat somebody. Okay. So you can see that's insulting. Yeah. But nonetheless, that then means a blanket ban on the word. Anyway, so if you're into competitive Scrabble, you've now got to rule out. I think it's something like 1,500 words have gone.
Well, on these podcasts that have creeped in, they now, and it's funny because you're listening to I understood when they said you can't say the N-word, but it wouldn't really come up. But then these other ones,
well
no, I mean
some people.
No, I mean in terms of normal society, it's not good. Well. But then there was they would say that, and I didn't know the words that they were talking about. They said the R word in terms of sexual assault and the P word in terms of child abuse, and they said so you can't say. But it became ridiculous because they were talking about to a policeman and they were saying the R word. And I was thinking, I don't know. I had to Google what they were even talking about. But
to know what the R word would mean.
Yeah, I thought, the P word.
So I think in academia now, those are words that require trigger warnings so that the snowflakes in the classroom can leave if they'll feel unhappy or troubled by the R word or the P word.
That's just a downhill problem you've created. You've just put a ball on the hill and it's now, because this is the thing when people said about, you can't use the N-word. You go, well, it has to be in books. It has to be, you can't edit films out. If it's in there, everything is context. That is it. That's my blanket.
Everything is context.
Otherwise, get rid of N-word. Get rid of all the films with Tarantino. Doesn't matter if it's one person saying it to the other. You cannot have that word exist, which is fine. You can get involved in all that. My problem is this. I always think about a bigger picture. If you ban anything like a word, you can ban if context and somebody says it wrong or it's a user, knock them up. But if it's in a book and you're reading about it, or maybe it's a black person speaking to a black person about history of that. If you start editing one word, you've opened the door up now. We edit language. That doesn't matter what it is. I'm not bothered about what word it is. So then you added a second word in, which you have done now. We add a third and a fourth. So eventually a government can come in and say, like North Korea, there's no word for family now. We're going to ban that. So,
is that true?
Yeah, it's just government. there's no birthdays. We just have one birthday. There is only the leader. This is where it goes. But like, no, it's just another word because that's wrong. Yeah, when you point at it and say that one there, but then you've opened the door up to we now ban speech. That's what you've done with that one. Even though you're liberal and you're on the good side, you've just set in the rolling place of fascism eventually, because then a Trump gets in and the precedent is there for we don't say the N word, we don't say the R word, we don't say the F word, family. There's no family. There's only one leader. You can't have little groups everywhere. You can't have the S word for a society. There's just the one word, L for leader. So we'll ban the S word. D word for democracy. We're going to ban that. But we go, well, when did all this start? Your future generation, the war happens. They go, when did all the banning of words start? Started with that one right over there in the 1980s. But nobody, it's like, you're banning words. You can't have that. Even if it's
I suppose the idea behind it is that you want people to respect each other. And
yeah, but context, you can't just say, I can't say certain words.
But I mean, words, well, we do, in this country, I suppose we do have, there's anti-hate speech laws and stuff. So there are restrictions on freedom of speech. People do get arrested for that. People do get arrested for, you can be arrested for making threats against someone. So I mean, there are
should, yeah.
Yes, well, this is what I'm saying. There are restrictions there. So we all agree. Again, we all agree that there should be some restrictions. Yelling fire in a crowded theater, making death threats, planning crimes.
There's a difference between.
Will someone rid me of this troublesome priest? There are some things that are should be legislated on. But what we're talking about is where the line is.
Yeah.
No,
context.
So it's not.
That's all that matters.
It isn't
context.
kind of an absolute. Really, we're just talking about where the legal line should be, and unfortunately, that does require constant vigilance.
Yeah, but it's context. That's all that matters. You could say, I could say, right, the N word in a historical book being taught in a class about African slavery. You have to use the terms that were used for the people at the time, even if you said it, not the American versions. But you'd have to say that if you can't read it in the class and say the N word, but then so I would say, yeah, you can, but then you can't shout it in the street at somebody, lock them up. So what's the complication here? I don't understand. What's the context that was said? Well, one was shouted at a street at a black person. The other one was being taught in a class about slavery. You go, well, yeah, there's two different things. It's not the same thing at all. Context, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And at what point does the phrase the N word become offensive?
Well, yeah, the letter word. You can't say the N. But
so there's a marvelous book Michel Faber's written called D, imagining a time when the letter D has disappeared.
You're talking about democracy.
Just ogs, the democracy, and it's all seen through the eyes of this this girl who's come from Somaliland, and she's the one who remembers that there's D, and everybody's trying to criticize her for using it.
But we're saying stuff that we shouldn't be having this conversation. It shouldn't be a thing. Like we're not in a cartoon. So saying about democracy, if like a Trump got in and it spilled out over to different countries, it would start with a liberal. The word liberal would go. That would be taught in schools as a bad thing. They would start there, and that generation goes up. And democracy would be seen as the people that fractured society and didn't go along with everything they caused. So the D word would go. But it's happening. It's happening. It starts with one word.
I mean, what do you think Johnson was? Johnson was a reaction to the American extreme conservatism and Brexit and stuff. I mean, it's a product of that.
Yeah,
it took full advantage of it.
But it's
already happening. I mean, you've got Le Pen making gains. You've got the weirdo Christian Democrat people in Germany, and you've got sort of right-wing parties making gains in the Netherlands. The Netherlands of all places. Really chilled out Netherlands. Yeah. They're banning everything left, right, and centre. It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine said because he's quite a lefty, but he's so annoyed by it all now. He says, "Bung as many pronouns and banned words as you want." He said, let's just crash into the wall as soon as possible and get it over with. Just ban them all until it really kicks off and people can't take it anymore. Let's get that war out the way, because that's where we're going. So people joke with him saying, no, because he's saying that there will be, you can't say this, you can't say this, you can't say this, you can't say, and eventually, because I've said how fascism, there aren't enough bad people in the world to create fascism. What you have to do is you have to turn all the people in the middle into fascists. And that comes from the left, because you annoy them, and you annoy them. They're good people, most people. They don't understand things, and they're a bit scared of change and things like that. But you have to get all those people on the side. So you do that by funding the left to annoy them till the point where they say, I'm not a bad person, but I can't do this, I can't do that, I've had to do this, I've had to change the signs in my workplace because of that, I can't do. And the fascists say, we're going to get rid of all that. Don't worry about the hate people, the fact that hate these people. We're going to get rid of all the money problems. You've got your business and you can't do enough things for people. And they go, oh, sod it then, let him in. Because you have to alienate all the people in the middle. So like they found with Russia and thing, you don't just, with the social media, you don't just fund the fascists. You also fund the ultra-liberal. You go to the students and you fund them and say, more groups, don't you want to, look what they're telling you can't say this, they're telling you can't say that. And it becomes, then they say, yeah, right, all these good people in the middle that aren't bad people, you're not doing the right thing, and then those people go, I'm not dealing with this, so I'll just go to the people that I know, the older conservative people. You have to, so being that liberal where you're telling people that aren't bad people, you're not doing enough, you alienate and you push them to the right. And that's how a fascist government gets in, because they get sick. Because it's not really human. We're talking about the pronouns and children can't say certain things. And people don't know what to do because it's not right. It's not humanly right to do that way. So they will always revert to another way that they know, which is conservatism, which is then leads on to right-wingism and all things like that. So being that liberal and doing the whole thing of the pronouns and ramming it down people's throats until they can't take it anymore, you push them to the right. And then somebody pops up and says, well, I'll stop all that.
And galvanizes it with
it
strong
doesn't
leadership.
come through the right. There aren't enough people. There's too many people like democracy, but you push them that way. So when I hear the word, you can't say the word, I think, right, you've just created a problem 90 years down the road when something's going to kick off, because this only goes one way. You can't have children dictating to adults how they should be, and you're going to alienate. And I've seen it in front of me from years ago. I remember a woman had a little shop, lovely lady, didn't care about race, anything like that. She lived in London all her life. And I remember her being forced to put in a disabled toilet in her shop because I think she had over 5 people working or something. And she said, I can't afford this. And people were coming around to tell her, you've got to put it in. And I remember the change in her over like a 2-year period because she had to get it put in. And I could see she changed as a person. And I thought, oh, they just, even when I was like 20, it stayed with me at the time of like, you just alienated a person that wasn't doing anything. Nobody come in with disabled. You could say, well, they didn't come in because there wasn't a disabled toilet, but even there wasn't that. But I remember her moaning about it. I said, I can't afford this. I can't afford it. The bloke coming down, her getting annoyed at him. But why this and why that? Well, there's no space for it. I can't. And she said, I can't afford this. It was like £15,000 to put a whole toilet in out the back. And she said, but I can't afford it. It's a little shop. And then I remember the change in her. And I thought, oh, see, now if a right-wing conservative popped up locally who said, right, you won't have to do that anymore. It has to be, if you've got 50 staff, then we'll put it to say, well, whatever. But there's certain things that feel right as a human being and that don't. And the pronoun thing and ramming things down people's throat.
Let's take that apart, because I forgot about the disabled toilet thing. Yeah. And now, of course, we've got the sexless toilets. Right, yeah. And so we've moved on from disabled to making trans feel comfortable wherever they want to take a pee. And so what seems to have become really important in identity politics has been victim status. So if you can show that in some way you are a victim of a situation, whether it's because you're a pretty girl or because you want to be, you have gender dysphoria, or because of the color of your skin or whatever, if you can find the reason why you feel victimized, you have a special standing in society. Yeah. And I feel that is really what needs to be addressed, that that yes, everybody should have equal opportunity, but we shouldn't value disadvantage in the way that we're doing.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we're talking about the disabled thing, that woman that I was talking about, she was a good person. If you said to her, oh, there's a law coming and these big companies, if you've got a big superstore, whatever, you have to have a disabled toilet, she would have gone, of course, yeah. But when you have a law where it forces somebody to a point where, well, that doesn't feel right, that's when you start to turn people. I think when they say like why fascism never works is because it never feels right as a human thing. You feel democracy is what's in your DNA to be free and things like that. So it always buckles eventually, because you're going against human nature. You're fighting a new generation about who in their DNA being free feels right. Fascism doesn't.
If you look at ape culture, and after all, we are just hairless apes. I've watched nearly every season of Monkey Life, the never-ending program about Monkey World in Dorset, and you look at the colonies, and there's always a highest-ranking ape, the leader, and there's always an unfortunate lowest-ranking ape, and all the other apes try and be somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And you can shift your status by moving into different colonies. So I remember in the nursery colony, the highest-ranking ape was Sally, who was a one-armed, very elderly ape. And none of the other young apes would have any truck. Sally ruled that. But if you put Sally in the young bachelors' colony, she'd have been nothing.
Right, yeah.
So I like to think that democracy, or consensual decision-making, should we call it, is the best way to go. But maybe as animals, the real way we work is through choosing a leader.
Oh no, there's always a hierarchy. I mean, I've said before, it is this is the language you use. Well, there is always a hierarchy of people. It doesn't matter. It's like we think, well, if we have this type of leader, that will solve things. Barack Obama. If we have a woman leader, that will solve it. You go, no. Hierarchy. It doesn't care about what race or anything. So you can fight for whatever thing you want at the top. That thing at the top always becomes part of the pyramid. So, I mean, even with Margaret Thatcher, there was a massive thing. The female. It's like, look back, you go, it really didn't matter what sex you were. It's the system is the thing. But it fools you into thinking, well, it's not the system, it's the person. So what do we need? We needed a woman. Oh, that didn't work. We needed a black guy. Well, that didn't work. Maybe a trans person, because then another. Well, that didn't work. You go, well, how many of these things are you going to keep going through until you get a dolphin up there and say, well, maybe we can't need a human. Let's have it, because they're. But sorry, one thing. So, I mean, when Margaret Thatcher got in, a woman, she had all the Women's Institute behind her. And I listened to her assistant on the radio, I think it was Radio 4, and she said, she was female, and she said, so I was the last female in the door. And she said, but hiring females, door closed behind me, because she said, do not want any women working here, because she was obviously thought to her it was a weakness to. So she went in on that ticket. And she said, literally, the door closed behind me. She said, I don't want any women working around me. And you think, so it's just bullshit. It's just once that door closes, America, England, once that door closes, it's just another day. And all that sting was just used to get them in there. So it doesn't matter. It could be, obviously, in the European countries, the white people are more prominent in the bigger positions. So that can change because of mixing and things like that. And then you could have more mixed race people or black people. The hierarchy there will still be a hierarchy of people. One will get pushed down, the other go. It doesn't matter who's there. We're apes. It's the big thing in society that we can't admit to, that there are certain structures that we always fall into. So it doesn't matter what role you're fighting for, what colour you are. There will always be a hierarchy, people below you that go down and some people go up. I mean, the race thing will vanish just because of mixing. It will be death throes of the last white people and the last pure black people. But in 100,000 years or whatever, that's all gone. Once you've invented planes and boats, it goes away. There won't be any pure white people or pure black people. Just go anyway. So in 200 years, they'll look back and say, there used to be a thing called race. It doesn't exist now. And they'll look at it in historical books. So it's just this fighting to make things work the perfect way. It's just such a waste of time. There's be a hierarchy. People at the top will take from the people at the bottom. That is it. And we're not as spiritually aware enough to change that. So for the moment, we're apes. But saying, well, we'll put that person in charge because that will fix things. We needed somebody like that, or a person of that colour, or a person of that sex. It's just a waste of time. The system's the problem, and it diverts your attention away from the actual problem. Sorry, Charles, I rambled on. You've forgotten that.
I was going to say, I suppose we delegate. I mean, that's the thing with democracy, is obviously we delegate lots of stuff. I don't know how an effective prison system works. I have no interest in learning that, and I'm quite happy to pay a bit of tax to let someone else deal with that, who hopefully does know what they're doing. The issue, of course, comes along is when people don't know what they're doing, to be honest. And I think we have the issue with this government competency. You know, I mean, even beyond their ideology, I don't agree with, but like, it's just competency, I think, with a lot of these.
Yeah, no, you're doing that thing of letting them get away with things. It's not about lack of competency. It's how much can I get away with until I can't get away with it anymore. How much corruption can you actually get, or how much shame can you actually get away with until you reach that peak? You go, right, no more, or you're going to lose your job. That's what happens. It's not nice.
Do you remember the MP's expenses scandal and how that just unravelled? And that was a very interesting moment in British history when it was the broadcasters and the journalists who were holding the politicians to task. And they really... and then you felt that after that there was a retaliation against the broadcasters, and there was a lot more regulation, which introduced a whole era of self-censorship.
It's just
and unfortunately the government becoming intertwined with media organisations like never before. I mean, when you look at some of Boris Johnson and David Cameron's advisors, they literally, you know, you have deputy editor of the Daily Mail, and then he goes off and becomes chief policy person for David Cameron for 3 years, and then goes back to being deputy editor of the Mail. That's, I mean, and time again, senior people in these organisations, the Telegraph, Spectator, they go off, they do a couple of years literally in government being a senior aide, and then they go back to the newspaper.
But that's what I mean.
There is such a crossover.
The system is so bad, the problem's so bad that we can't accept it. So we just sort of make excuses, like you say, competency. No, it's not competency. It's what you can get away with. I think it's not like they don't know what's going on.
In a way, this is where you're regulating. You're right here, you guys. You are saying how you see things. You're doing it in a respectful way. You put out the video on a public platform, and people can make comment, which is like the real marketplace. You know, it's like the Roman...
The only thing that will change things is just knowledge from people from the bottom. You can't ask the people at the top to change. It doesn't, humanly, it doesn't work. So it's only the changing of roots underneath.
But why not? I mean, I think we can expect more. I think we should be able to expect more.
Oh, yeah, you have to keep the hammer on them. Otherwise, they will just run amok. But you can't change it from the top. That's the point. That doesn't make any sense. You can only fix the next generation coming along.
Yes, possibly. I mean, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, really, with our political system and our society, I was thinking, if I was starting again, there's not an awful lot I'd keep, to be honest. Like, I do think I'd change an awful lot of stuff.
What would you keep?
The House of Commons is a nice building. I mean, I think
just as
with a lot of tradition, I think we need a big, huge change. I'm a Republican in the small r sense. That word means an awful lot of stuff, but I'm a Republican in that we should be Republican. We can keep the royal family, whatever, but they shouldn't just be part of our political system. I just don't see why, basically, and I never heard a good enough excuse.
The only thing that I can see is of great value is that with the monarch holding the position of being head of state, church, and army, none of those institutions can control the others. Yeah. So that would be the thing that I think is worth having a figurehead who is the nominal head of all those three institutions. Because I wouldn't like to live in a military dictatorship or a church. Yes.
True, but then I don't think that necessarily the head of state should also be the head of our state religion as well. I think that's slightly weird. And as I said, they can be off. I mean, there's lots of countries. Spain still has their monarchy, but they are a democracy. I think they have president and stuff, but they're still there, and they're still in all the tabloid newspapers, and they all get married and doing their own thing and dashing about speedboats and having a wonderful time. But they're just not an official part of our political system. And I just think it's very odd. And I think the House of Lords is very odd. And it's one of those things that I think that people try not to think about, and certainly the media don't think about it, because anytime anyone sits down and goes, hang on a sec, you mean to say that all these people are just inherit things or appointed there for life? And you're like, yep, and I don't get a say in that, and they can have a say in laws. And you're like, yep. And they're like, that doesn't sound very right. And then they're like, no, stop.
Yeah.
So it is trying to change itself. And, there's a limit to how many more generations will have inherited titles. And I do think an upper chamber checking the legislation coming out of the Commons is a useful thing.
Yes.
But it's all
necessary. Yeah,
it's all sort of,
it needs to be there, but it needs to be elected. I think that's the thing. So you definitely need a second chamber, but that needs to be elected. I mean, I don't see
it's
why.
a lot of little things. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're grabbing at straws as well. It's not as bad because they sort of, well, this isn't. Why is that not the pinnacle of what you think good members of society should be? That's what that should be. Represent the best of the best. You go, no, it's the opposite. You go,
But sometimes people who have working experience of an industry might be more useful as legislators than elected representatives. If you've had years of experience in car manufacture,
it should almost be like accountancy. It should be no more problem than that. I said the system isn't how much money in and how much money has to get dispersed to certain things to run a country. That seems to work. The problem is when people say, right, we'll do the country thing in the accountancy, but first we've got to do my career, then the career of my party, and whatever we decide then we do based on that. That is what it is. There's no point saying, why does that person do that? Because he's not thinking about a country, he's thinking about a job, and then the people in his party and where he stands, them, then whatever else, they go out and do PR based on that. But if you've got everyone making deals and siphoning off money and, well, I'm my friend here and we've got money to do it. You go, but you're doing it based on, you're filtering the country, running the country through one person's career. It goes through that filter first, then into the party and what the party say. Then it gets to what have we got left to deal with? We'll deal with for the country. No, you take the people out. I always said you could solve politics. It's simple. You just take money out of it. You make sure there's nobody that can be corrupted by money or power. So if you're going to do this, you can't do this, this and this for 10 years after. So just so you know, going into it, if you're going to do this, you have to have done this, this and this first. So you can't fake it. So just take money out, and then suddenly the evil and it just vanishes. It's very simple.
I was going to say yes. Unfortunately, I don't know how well democracy can survive moving in the future unless we start regulating money and how money is influencing that system, because the bigger, the more money that is available and the more these companies make, just the more they will spend. I mean, they've had reports recently about the oil companies and how much they've been spending with sort of climate change misinformation. They had a report recently about Uber and about how much they were spending it all across every Western country to undermine employment laws and make sure that they weren't classed, that the workers weren't classed as actual employees, so that they didn't have any rights, so that they could just charge whatever. There's just so much money now, like in these industries.
You're talking about lobbying, really, aren't you?
Yes. I think
which in America is considered respectable, and here we're very squeamish about it.
It's bribery. That's isn't it? It's don't call it lobbying.
It's
just
legal,
call it bribery.
Legal bribery. Yeah. It's also such a big. It's strange, isn't it? Because I think in America, I was thinking about this. The people spend awful, depending on the sort of prominence of an elected official in America. They can make hundreds of thousands, millions, or if you're the lobbyist for tobacco or whatever, the arms industry or Boeing or whatever the heck, whoever you're shilling for. But like it is. It's so petty. Like when you see how much some of our MPs, like they've got named MPs that you would recognize the name of, and they've taken like $7,000 from some insurance firm to sort of gut the new insurance bill, and it's so petty. It's such a small amount some of these people are taking to sell their souls. To sell their
that's what I say. You just need some eventual one generation will get sick of something will change and they say, right, we're putting these ironclad laws now, and bang. No money. You can't take any money from everyone. What's the problem? Why would you even argue against that? And if you do argue against that, what does that say about you? So from this year, there's no more money coming into politics. It's accountancy. That's all it is.
I also say drug tests for every MP at random, regular.
Well, I said
I want that right now. I want that right. I want it public as well. I want them to do P tests at random, and I want that public knowledge, and I want suspensions for people who fail, because I am curious how many people would fail that. How many cabinet ministers currently would fail that, to be honest?
Well, I said when I went to the Parliament or wherever it was, I went and had that meeting, and it was like 11:30 in the morning, and the bar was open and people were drinking alcohol. And I was thinking, what? This is a real thing. What other work would you be sat drinking alcohol in the morning? Just like, that's normal. Yeah, it just goes right now. It's going on. You know, what? So it's just rules. But I said, a friend of mine said to me, he said, if you look at it, this before I went in as well, he said, the House of Parliament just looks like a university. They've just gone from one place there with the silliness and the rules and the thing and the groups of people and and it goes to another one. It's called Parliament. It's just another, same leather, same wood, oak woods thing, same rules and things like that. And you've now got that they come out. Well, actually, Orson Welles said, he said, it was strange because he said, you shouldn't hate, this was after like Nixon and all that, they would talk about politicians. And he said, you shouldn't hate politicians. He said, they're just actors. They don't believe in anything. They just, whatever role they have to do. And when you go, well, they're told what to wear, they're dressed, they have to read from scripts. They'll stick to that script as well. They don't believe in anything. It's just what's needed for the audience.
And the party.
Yeah, the party. And you go, they really are. Because I was listening to Question Time a couple of weeks ago. Just put it on. Every now and again I put it on. And it's sort of like sadomasochism because I watch just to see how bad they are. And it is robots speaking. So they would say their speech is just hollow, just statements. They do no talking, just statements. You ask me something, I read a statement. You ask me another question, I just read a statement. And then I just went back to the earliest one I could find and played that one. And it was like the same thing. The platitudes that would come out, just hollow statements about nothing. You go, this is on every week. And this is politics now. They stand up and they say a speech at you. Mm-hmm. So you're not talking to a human being. It's just, I'm saying this because of this purpose. There's no meaning behind it. Tough on immigration. We're going to sing this. We're going to get this. You go, you're saying nothing. And you've been doing it for generations and people have got used to it. So now it's normal. Well, just say nothing.
That format, if you were allowed a follow-up question, that's the thing. Because often people have their, cost of living crisis, right, okay. And they go, right, got my pre-prepared bit that the paragraph that I've memorized. Yeah, okay, so I would say this. And you go, and it's nonsense and rubbish and you can pick holes in it. Yeah. What they never allow you to do, and this is what they don't do on most news things, is the follow-up question, because you need that follow-up question to go, actually, that didn't make any sense. Yeah. Like you're not actually addressing the issue
this
here.
Is the problem.
This doesn't make any sense. And it's that potential for a follow-up question that would be really interesting.
No, but the whole system, when we're talking about media and all that being, the point is the media aren't on your side that much. It feels like some of them are, but if you did make a fool of them, you don't get the interview next time. That's built into the system.
Right.
So why would you do it? You can say enough that it looks like people are saying that this and this.
Many
you say a speech, and then you go on to the next thing. If you said, excuse me, just answer the question. You can't do that because then you won't get another answer. Right. You won't get. So
you've got one shot.
They know you can ask them the question, let them say their riposte to it, because that's all it is. But don't make a fool of them. Don't hold them to it, because then they'll cancel the other thing and the other thing and the other thing. Mm. And now you're one of those people that the media won't speak to, those politicians won't speak to. But they all know that.
Paxman.
Yeah, he used to.
He got away with that for decades, like being a bit of a bully, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that was of his time, not now.
As a personality type. I mean, I think he was bullying the right type of people. When he's an attack dog, I think if you aimed him in the right direction, great, aim it at the bad people, that's fine. I'm sure he's one of these people who would just be gnawing his own feet off if you just left him. It'd be awful to his assistant or something. You know what I mean? It'd be dreadful to people around him if he wasn't just directed. I've met and worked with people like that. They're great at their job and they're very antagonistic, but yes, unless they're pointed sometimes in the right direction, then they can be awful.
Right, so let's end the politics. I don't know how we got down here. What did we start talking off about? Was it the funerals?
No, it was the
Snowflakes.
Use of the M word in the classroom.
I think Snowflakes, right? Yeah, but yeah, it leads to fascism and slowly moved into politics. Yeah. But look, this is why I don't get involved in it all. Until you take money out, don't spend generations asking questions about why this and why they did that and the moral code and all that. There is no moral code. Take money out and the problem gets solved. People will go somewhere else. Take the money.
And we're in a period where we've we don't really trust our leaders now because we know that there was a lot of attempts at brainwashing during the pandemic. And I think that undermines certainly my confidence in what was being said. So we don't need a mask this week, but we have to wear a mask next week. And it's fried a lot of people's trust.
Anytime you don't understand what they're doing, you can be guaranteed that they're trying to figure things out to do with their money and power. Why did you go with those companies and not that one that was ready? Well, because there's money's in over here, and
that's what I'm saying a bit about incompetency. Because I think if they just come out and said flat out, there was some ambiguity and confusion and backtracking over certain things, and this, use of masks and vaccines and stuff. I think if they just come out were honest to start with, okay, this is the situation. Just trusted the general public. Yeah, right. This is sit down, right. Okay, this is the reality of the situation. This is what the situation we're facing. Unless we reach, 70, whatever it's 70, this will spread this fast if we don't do something.
Yeah, but
so we need to do something. We need to hit
logically
75% vaccinated rate in order to get everyone back out on the streets and get everything going. This is what we want. This is our end game. Just be honest. You know what I mean?
See, that's your problem. You're talking with logic, and let's just say the things happening, the pandemic, we should do what you just said. That's the right thing to do. Tell people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I'm a politician, and how's this going to make me look if we close down and it goes wrong? I don't know what we're going to do about this. So let's wait. What about the people dying? Don't worry about that, because I don't want to do something that's going to make me look stupid. And my party is saying don't, because there's something else in it make them look good, and they're saying that. So again, you have to go through the filter. It's not logic. You don't say, well, someone's ill, we'll keep them out of the room. They go, well, what they might get, I've got to get a lift home from them. So I don't want to, but we might die. Yeah, but let's wait to see if they definitely are it. So it always has to go through a filter of one person's career, followed by any question. It's not logic.
That bit when Boris Johnson stood up, Alexander Johnson. I think Boris humanises him a bit too much, makes him sound silly, makes him sound like, Boris, like a little puppy or something, but he's not. He's a dreadful oaf, basically. And, but I remember he stood up in Parliament and said, categorically, we will not do another lockdown. 100%. I would die in a ditch. I think it was the die in a ditch. No, that was over Northern Ireland's protocol. But he said, this is categorical, line in the sand. This is the hill I die on. We will never, ever do a lockdown. About 4 days later. And it's just like, dude, you don't have to use that type of language. You could just say, look, okay, the situation is currently we are hoping to not do another lockdown. However, if the numbers change, if the reality on the ground changes, we might have to alter that position. That's the response you give.
I'm a politician.
You give the honest response. Just to say
you're doing it again. What? I'm Boris, and I say I don't really care about things that happen. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to look silly. So I'm going to say whatever suits me.
So I'm just going to. I'm going to be proven an oaf and a buffoon 4 days later, or 5 days later, when I had to do a complete 180. I'm saying it makes him look bad and makes him stupid.
Do you remember when the Heathrow was going to be built, and he said like, I'll lay down in front of the tractor, runway, and then it happened, and then he just went on holiday.
So we want consistency in our leaders. We want them to not be hypocrites.
Yeah, we want them to not be corrupt, not be hypocrites, not be selfish. You go, well, you've just erased politics then. That is what it is.
We want philosopher kings.
Yeah, I don't want self-serving,
with a
greedy,
good sense of humour.
Yeah.
I think you should have to serve a certain amount of time in society, and then you get picked out from whatever school. You have to have been a teacher for a certain many years, blah, blah, blah. And you come in, that's your wage if you don't like it. And it could be like, I don't know what companies would filter out, give you, I suppose police might get checked financially to say like that you're not corrupt, you haven't got any blah, blah, bankruptcies or anything like that. I'd say, right, you're going to come into politics. This is it, right? You're going to come into politics. This is what you get paid. 70,000 pounds a year. That is it. That is the job. And you're not allowed to take money from anywhere else, and you have to supply your bank records every 5 years. People say, well, that's quite fussy. It is, unless you're a good person. And you go, well, no, I want to help society. The only people that would complain, you go, well, you're out. Why are you complaining? I thought you want to do good. We're giving you a good wage. Yeah, but okay, so let's just remove that. Take money out. The problem will, every other problem that we talk about over generations will go away, because people go, well, there's no money or power in it. Well, I better get a job as a CEO over here then. No privilege. I can't get in because of money. There's no point saying power. Power is money. So you won't be able to get in. You won't be able to force people to do anything where there's no money at the end of it. There's no point. So just take money out. Then it gets rid of all the other. But other than that, if you've got money in there, it will pull people, it will siphon people in that are greedy. And that's why the problems happen.
But yeah, I'm voting for you.
But it's like childish common sense. I don't know, because I've said, I don't want to keep going on about it, but I didn't learn to read till I was nearly 30, and I lived on the streets and things like that, so I don't know anything. So I just looked at it with fresh eyes and going, this is like embarrassing. Why have you allowed all this to be the way it is? Because you just grew up in it. But it's from somebody outside just go, what are you doing? I thought these were supposed to be the pinnacle of society, these morally, well, they tell us they are, but that's PR. How can you not even know that? Like, why? So why have the conversation? I can't listen to the radio, because when I listen to somebody talk about why did so-and-so, can you believe it? Yeah, I can believe it, because it's a selfish thing that's designed to siphon in money and make them powerful and move on to the next thing. So why are you questioning why they're doing so? I can't even listen to that because it's stupid. It's like, why is that person walking into the wall? Well, turn him the other way. No, but he keeps walking in. We're going to keep doing it. Why are you having conversations over generations? A guy I knew when I was about 25, something like that, he said, I don't watch this and that. He said, because the politicians, he said, when I was growing up, they were talking about immigration and taxes and all that. And he was 70. So go and put question time on now. Immigration, taxes. You go,
yeah.
Am I in like some sort of weird, like this hasn't changed?
Well, this is why I suppose it's the perpetual thing, is because these will never be solved. I mean, taxes,
but it's only
people always moan about that. Yeah, because people always feel that, very few people think, you know what, I think I'm paying just the right amount of tax. I'm very happy with my tax bill.
So, and it's also about somebody else deciding how to spend that collective money, and you may or may not approve of the war that they want to start or the railway project they want to do,
But it's just
people, more and more people are saying, well, actually, I would like this money to go to this thing and not to that thing. I don't want it to go to the Trident nuclear project. I want it to go to whatever, food banks or schools or whatever. But,
everything's nice and simple. But if you've got politicians that are greedy, and then you've got a media that decides what is something morally right or wrong, everything's nice and simple. What do we need? Hospitals, safety, housing. That's very, very simple to do. But it becomes complicated when you put human beings' careers in front, and their careers are more important than run the country. The country's irrelevant. They don't care who the people are. It's not because they're nasty. They just don't care. There's no empathy for that. In the same way, if I said to you, aren't you annoyed that you've probably stepped on some insects on the way here? I mean, funny, you don't. You're not a nasty person. I just don't care.
No,
and that's what politics. Stop talking to them like they're doing what they're supposed to do. When you're a greedy person in a greedy, that's what they do. Why are you questioning it?
It's the mentality of Orson Welles giving his speech in the
auditorium.
Citizen K.
Yeah. No, that was Third Man, when he's in.
I haven't seen it.
When he's in the what's it? Not merry-go-round. Ferry, yeah. He's in the ferry and he gives his whole speech about, so you look down there and you see all those dots.
Yeah.
What if I told you, if one of those dots stopped moving, would you feel anything?
Yeah.
He goes, what if I told you, I'll give you £50 for every dot that stops moving?
Right,
you start adding up about how many dots you could, you could afford to lose.
That's it.
And it's, and that is the thing.
PR. Yeah. Just the way they talk in public, if you could and then they walk into another room and they go back to their friends and then they start to talk like human beings with normal flows of conversation and the cadences of a normal conversation. If you could just lift that wall up like a theatre and just listen to them talk, you go, they don't give flying shits. They just come out and open the door and they become an actor on stage. Mm-hmm. And until you absorb that you're watching a play, this isn't real. So stop asking that character. If I'm going to take you to the theatre and let them do a play, and then I'll try and meet them after and saying, so you think that? You go, no, they're not really a Victorian. You go, no, but they were. Like, I saw them. You go, do you understand they're an actor? Would you understand we're in the theatre? Yeah, but I don't understand why they're not dressing up as a lion. You go, it's a play. Do you understand? That's how I feel. It's like you're watching a play, and then when you say they're dressed, they're giving scripts. You go, do you understand what I go? Yeah, but anyway, you go, no, they're an actor.
How many soap stars have said that they've experienced, they've been on the tube or whatever, and someone's come up to punch them in the face? How dare you have it? How dare you cheat on Sonia or whatever? And there's another person that he said that his character had some financial problems at Christmas. I think he tried to kill himself at Christmas or whatever. I think it's EastEnders, and people were coming up to him and giving him money. saying, mate, you're going through a bad time, it's fine. And he's just like, no. He had to explain, I'm an actor.
But that's what
I get paid a very decent wage by the BBC, and it's a television program.
Yeah.
It is fiction, and I'm not real. And they were like, no, just fine. Between you and me, take it. And so he would sometimes take the money. He said, just give it to put it in the charity box. You know what I mean? Because he just couldn't.
Right. So
he just couldn't. He got so tired of having to explain what's fiction and what's reality.
But that,
like, fundamental.
I don't think, well, that's a stupid person. I think that's just someone who's become delusional. But I almost think that about a lot of the rest of society. I look at you and I don't know what you're thinking. Why do you not assume that they're acting? I mean, and the worst thing is, they are, but you don't care. That's probably the main thing. You know that person can't be trusted. You know, if I get them and I put them in front of you, they'll spin you some. I go, oh, what a nice person. You go, right, well, let's look at their history. Let's look at all decisions they made. You go, they're not like, they're acting in front of you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why you all don't go along with it. I think it's because we all have self-preservation in mind. And it's like, if somebody did say, okay, I'm open to everything you say, what are we going to do? You say, you don't know what we've got to do, but you don't want to know because you've got a house and you've got a mortgage and you've got a fine. But what if you've lived on the streets? What if you've had nothing? And you look at stuff that's really bad. You go, well, change it. No, because I've got a car and a mortgage and I don't really want to. Okay, that's fine. But just know that your problems, you're kicking the can down the road for your children to deal with, but worse. Just admit that to yourself. Can't do it. So what I have to do is just go, let me just go at my job. I'll moan about things and whinge, but I'm not going to be the one to change anything. Oh, okay, so you're letting your kids do it. Yeah, but it's going to be harder for them.
What that raises for me is the fact that we know at some level that we create enough wealth collectively that everyone could have a safe place to live and enough to eat.
Yeah, but the problem with that is they don't want that because that's the last thing they want. They don't want your kids going to school with their kids. They don't want you. They don't want the black family living in their street. That's the thing they do not want. So they're saying equality and all that. That's the last thing that they want is people from an urban environment coming into their environment. They like things the way they are. Their modus operandi is to keep things the way they are for us and keep you over there. And then just spin propaganda to keep it that way, but make it look like we want equality. Oh, so you want the urban kids to go to school with your kids?
I don't even think people are talking about. I don't think this particular government is even giving lip service to. We want a fair and equal society. We want a society where everyone's given a decent opportunity. They've just even given up with the rhetoric, the rhetoric, even the empty rhetoric that might be. I think that's been given up on. Because what I see now is like when I saw the leadership election going on, the debates, and I saw all those candidates lined up. Oh, those little goblin people in their grey suits just lined up, and they said, okay, well, what do you cost of living? What's your plan for it? And this was initially when there was the 5 or 6 candidates. Not one of them had an answer. I mean, not even a pretend like I'm gonna go to the fuel companies and I'm going to negotiate a better deal and I'm going to discuss this and I've got ideas to change policy so we can help working class families and help the poorest. No, they didn't even bother to have an answer. They just were quiet. They just were silent.
But this is
and they said to anyone, and the host was like, "Has anyone got anything?
Yeah,
anything, any of you?" And they all just sat in their hands, went.
Right, and why that's happened is because, I don't mean this to be personal, because your parents didn't do anything, so it got worse. Remember I said before, they do as much as they can get away with. So eventually, you will just have billionaires running for politics. It will just get worse. It will be somebody that's less removed than before. You did nothing. Okay, let's have somebody else that's less removed than before. We did nothing again.
I mean, Rishi Sunak is worth 3, 4, 5,
but this is what I mean.
Or whatever.
Yeah, but that
his wife
happened.
Is worth an awful lot between them. They're worth an awful lot.
Because they're becoming slowly one more removed from society. And it will become a point where somebody didn't even go to uni. They just lived with their parent. They were a rich kid, blah, blah, blah. Now they're 50 and a billionaire because you did nothing the generation before and they did nothing before.
And maybe also the problems that we need to address require such a seismic shift in thinking about the future of work, about the fact that in our generation we will reach peak population on the planet, and we need air to breathe and water to drink. We have these giant problems, and they are beyond individuals' capacity to change decisions on,
because the problem is too big. That's the thing. The problem
it's supranational.
Yeah.
It's no good us cleaning up our pollution act if China's still belching out.
Yeah, but see, this is again. The bigger picture is this: while they're trying to get to another planet, who do you think is going to go to another planet when they start?
I'm
to
really
set up
happy with this planet. I think this planet is just so breathtakingly beautiful.
When there's 14 billion people.
It won't be 14. The projection is that around about 10, it starts to level out. So that's actually playing into the thing about what you do with corpses.
Yeah.
Because in this country, the projection is that I think by 2080 we get to peak population, and then it starts to decrease, and it's
but that's not good.
What roughly would that be then? Do you know? Are they estimating on that model?
The global population is projected at 10 billion.
Okay, and the country.
I can't remember what Britain comes out at on that. Whether it's 70 million.
A third more, yeah. Let's say roughly a third more would be pushing 90, 100 maybe, possibly. But yeah, that's.
But then,
and also, can I just throw in here that the thing that I feel passionately about that we really need to take care of are our trees. And I've been deeply, deeply affected by a book by a German forester, Peter Wohlgeber, The Hidden History of Trees, and he has become a superstar in Germany, and it's in translation. And I no longer see them as street furniture. Now they are, in my mind, slow-moving creatures whose future is intrinsically connected to ours. They communicate with each other underground. They look after their young. They have they have allies with other species of trees. So giraffe is coming along and is going to eat your leaves. The tree will not only send out horrible tasting chemicals into its own leaves, it will send under the underground communications a message that gets everybody else ahead to send out horrible tasting leaves.
That's cool.
And they are absolutely essential for keeping water retention. The cloud is one of our great friends. Without cloud, we have parched soil. We need that water. We need those trees all along the edge. We can't really afford to let countries mow down their forests for beef or for lithium batteries. The trees need to be there. And this author, he says, we talk about managing forests. Like we go in there and if you're a forester and you thin it out, he says the trees can take care of themselves. They know what they're doing.
They've been doing that for a long time now. They're pretty good at sort of finding a balance to the ecosystem.
Yeah, but the problem is we've got too many human beings cutting down too many, and eventually they go, right, this isn't fair playing. There's too many of you now. There's not 1 billion of you cutting us down. There's like 10 billion of you cutting us down. Yeah. So now,
they need protection.
Yeah. We shouldn't even have to say it. They clean the air, like they give us air.
Right.
But you go, but I don't even blame the people doing it because they're poverty-stricken people, so you don't blame them, but it's the big corporation at the top.
Yeah,
but there's also, though, in South America, you can see the corruption. If growing cocaine isn't enough for making you the top of your mafia gang, then maybe it's logging rainforest.
Just cutting down the lungs. Again, look at it from an alien going, the thing that keeps them alive. Yeah, they're cutting them down. And then they put a little stories about we're planting some. Yeah, you're planting 1,000, but you're knocking down 2 million.
We're like one of those rats in an experiment where they have like the bottle with cocaine laced water and then the food bottle, and we're just sat there just plugging away at the pleasure bit until we just die, basically.
But the problem, we would fix things. Most people would fix things. It's just if you've got a media telling you things and whispering things up, you don't think it's that big of a deal. That's what only changes from the root. The thing that saves society really has been the internet, because it's made you see what's going on. No,
Sharp intake of breath.
but there's bad points in it. But what I mean is, young people that come up aren't looking at those news channels. It starts to spread out. But all the bad things you can say don't outweigh the fact that before then nobody knew anything. We didn't know about. I mean, you go back to cigarettes, the alcohol, the drugs. You thought, if whatever those main channels told us, that's all you know. You don't. But it's allowed you to go. Do you think that thing's wrong? Yeah, I think it. Do you? Yeah, well, look at this. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, well, so everything came out because of the internet has sort of opened everything up. The secrets have gone. So that's why the old generation have got caught out, because they didn't know all this stuff was going to come along and people are going to start talking amongst themselves. We thought you were just going to look at those channels and that's all we had to control. But now you're all sort of doing your own thing. It's like, oh Christ, now we've got to try and control this. But the knowledge about things that we all know about democracy and things, it's only come through people talking outside of the main channels. So it's saved us. Knowledge has saved us. And that's why generation coming up might be better, because they haven't been poisoned by the mini channels that we've had.
I think that it's just, I think it's the same shit, different day. And I do think that the same misinformation and stuff is just gone to a different format. And I do think that, like, unfortunately, like, there's such a lot of very good stuff and very interesting stuff, but there's also a lot of rubbish and a lot of weirdness out there. And as I said, like, if I was a kid today growing up, I don't know how I would, I don't know if I think my worldview would be very, very different. Well, obviously, because I'm growing up in a different time. But I think even doing the same things, like, I don't know, silly things, being into football or being into video games or being into comics or being into films or whatever. I think that those cultures have changed very differently, and that in these interests that I do have and still have, I look at the culture sometimes around, especially the internet culture, and I'm completely turned off by it, to be honest.
Which aspect?
There's a lot of weirdness. Like, I don't know. There's just a lot of negativity and weirdness, like around things like comic books, for instance. There's a lot of there is a lot of sort of right wing people on, who are supposed fans, but then they rubbish the whole thing all the time, and very negative. And same thing with video game culture is actually very toxic. You know what I mean? There's a toxic element to that. And when I was young, it was just like, oh, you just bought video games and played them with your friends, and that was fun. That's what you did with your friends, and that was a bit of fun. And like now, it seems to be there's a whole toxic element of, I have to like this, and if I identify as this, then I have to sort of take these attributes on, and I have to sort of stick with this in group, and then I have to have XYZ values as well. And I just didn't ever feel that when I was young, Yeah,
I mean, it was simpler times, but there was also the corruption was a lot worse, because you didn't even know the corruption was there. At least now, because I've said before, it's like the Wild West. It's all chaos. Nobody knows what to do, what rules to imply over the internet. But at least now you go, oh, I get what's going on a bit more. People that are younger would never have known what the real corrupt. That he's a bad person there, but you didn't actually know all the lobbying and all the things. And now you can see the paperwork going to these places, the war and how much money was spent there. You didn't know any about that 200 billion was wasted in America in 1 year because of the Lockheed thing, and in England they did this and the war cost that. You didn't know any of that. At least now this is a generation that's got all the information, but people are going, what do we do with it? He's that and like that.
How do we interpret that?
Yeah, but at least now you go, well, we know. I mean, podcasts, that didn't exist. If you just wiped out all that, how much would you know if you removed anything to do with sort of online education or anything like that, and it was just what you were taught? You were very, very ignorant. You were just trying to get through life. But now you go, God, I've got all this to deal with. Yeah, unfortunately, you've now realised how much pus was in the situation, and now you go, well, I've got to. What do we do? But we're that generation. See, the other generation will then go, well, we need to fix that. We need to fix that if they don't clamp down on it. But that's what it is. Right, let's get off of politics.
Yes.
Let's try and deal with something else.
It's got to be like...
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes. Oh, it's the same old thing.
I was going to say,
do you want to
normally
do speed awareness or egg donors?
Speed awareness. Which would you prefer?
What? Speed donors or speed awareness? A bit more. We've
got
more to say on it. Go. What's your opinion on speed awareness?
So, it was an unusual day for me. I'm not often driving midweek, but a friend of mine had his wallet picked trapped on the underground the day before, and he didn't have his ticket to get home to Edinburgh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So I gave him a ride to King's Cross, and I was coming back home down Caledonian Road, and I was looking at the road ahead. It was a bit unfamiliar to me. I was looking at the road ahead, and a few days later, in came the letter telling me I'd been going at 24 miles an hour down
was
a
at 20 miles.
And anyway, so you get no option really. You can either have
Can I
the
stop you
points.
before you say it? And we pick up right there what you said. But remember what I said about there's certain things in life that don't feel right, that you'll
Yeah.
always buff against. So 30 miles an hour is a bit slow. When you're asking human beings to go 20 miles an hour, it's now stepped into when I'm actually doing 20, this doesn't feel right. The law doesn't seem to fit what society, this doesn't. So
That's
that's
right.
another thing where not going to work. You're just going to have loads of tickets. But I think it's
And
designed.
you and I, we all know that it's been done because the councils are going to make more money out of it. We know
Yeah, but that's
that.
what I said, money. And it will create more tickets because you're doing an unnatural level of speed.
And it was an empty road.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's
And-
designed to get the tickets
Trip.
out of you.
That's right.
Because it's forcing you to do something unnatural.
And then you get the choice.
Yeah.
You can either take the points
Yeah.
and the fine,
Yeah.
or you can just voluntary pay for your speed awareness course, your
Yeah.
online speed awareness course.
Yeah.
So I went through all the available ones, and it turned out that the cheapest at £73 was at Hartlepool. So I signed up for one of those. I felt very passive aggressive about it, you can imagine.
So all I say, whoever's teaching the courses, go to the company above them and then go to that company above them. And somewhere there will be money connected to the government, the courses, as well as the tickets. Lovely jubbly.
I'm sure there's a company with
Yeah.
a contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
What he did, well, so there were, was it 8 or 9 of us sitting online on a Zoom. The first thing he says, if I see any of you looking down at your phone, you are going to be deleted immediately,
Bloody
and you
hell.
can't continue. You can't conclude the course. First rule. Second,
Yes, miss.
so then he goes through everybody. Why are you there? Why are you there? And I went at 65 miles an hour. You know, but the fact is that it was quite interesting. And on the it doesn't feel natural, his point about that was that if you were in an automatic car, I would have been at second gear going at 20 miles an hour. And it's only because I'm in a manual driven car that I feel like I need to keep my foot on the gas. You know that.
Yeah, that doesn't really work. I understand
But-
why he's saying it.
But as the I think it was 2 hours as the time went on, and I was looking at all these signs. I mean, I learnt to drive so long ago through British School of Motoring, which he had to explain to everybody else on this course stood for BSM. Stood for
Yeah.
British School of Motoring. I learnt so long ago that I still, when I want somebody to overtake me, I wind down my window, imaginary, and I go like this so that they'll overtake,
Yeah.
which must really confuse anybody under the age of 40. And if I want if I want to show that I'm going to turn left, I'll go like this,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah,
how long ago
yeah,
I was taught. We were being shown signs that I didn't even know existed. And it did occur to me, I passed my test when I was... not the first time. I had to take a few, and I had more driving lessons than any single person I know. But I passed it in the 1970s, and a lot of things have changed since then. And it just suddenly occurred to me, I should have been doing a refresher course every decade since then. And in fact, I think that's really. I think insurance companies should be paying for them, because I think it would reduce hugely how much they're paying out. And I think that, and I'm going to say it here in public, first of all, but I think it would be a great idea if every decade after getting your full license, you did a voluntary refresher course of
Every 10 years, there's no problem with that. Every 10 years, especially over a certain age, it is what it is. You know, eyesight, things like that. Because
and just, I said, just refreshing, just refresh of your skills. You do anything for long enough. I mean, it's
things
useful.
Change on the road that you haven't been told.
The smart lanes, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I've seen them on motorways. I don't really know what they mean.
See, I've done many speed awareness courses. I've done them all. I've done the one because what people don't realise is
No,
you
what?
do a different course. Depending on where you got the ticket. So,
I thought you could only do one every 3 years.
No, yeah, but there's different types of courses. So if you get done speeding, I suppose 20 miles an hour, you're in a residential area. There's a course that comes along with that. if you get done speeding on the motorway, you get another chance to do a course that's to do with that. And then I can't remember the third one. I think it's if you jump a red light, dangerous driving, then like a phone or something like that. There's a course.
Get an option.
So you can do 3 types of courses, and I've done them all, and I've done one twice. But you can only do them once every 3 years. You can't get done doing the same thing on the same road.
So you just have to switch it up then, basically.
Yeah, just don't get. If you're going to jump a red light and then go on the motorway, and then in the
I got done for speeding. I need to concentrate on jumping red lights now. I'll just mix it up.
There's different types of courses, but so the 20 miles an hour thing. That's firstly I agree with you. You should have to do a course. Over 50, you have to have an eyesight test. You got it. You can't. You see people trying to park, and you go, I remember trying to park a test. How do you park? You can't even get into a normal big space without the thing backing out. So some people just can't do it anymore. But the 20 miles gone.
I've noticed this. This is something I've started to do now. When I'm reading something, I'm starting to go, and I'm actually starting to go like this now with things, and I'm like, that's not a good sign already. You know what I mean?
You're driving a car,
but
you just don't. You hit someone you don't even.
For listeners, I'm gesturing, moving something further away because obviously my medium, my long side.
Your arm is shrinking.
But then, so they say like the 20 mile an hour thing. It's just a complete joke.
Yes.
Nobody.
So the thing that was being drummed down our throats on this course was that it's saving children's lives because at that speed, you're less likely to kill a child who runs into the road. And of course, I want to know what children are doing running into the road.
Yeah. But then that's it, because it's a nice statement to say scientifically, you go, yeah, but what about how many would die at 10 miles an hour? None. Well, let's do that then.
Yeah.
So you go, well, you can't do that. Now, the problem was, remember, terms of the drivers, remember those speed limits were set in place with older cars. Mm-hmm. You've got different technology now with braking and things. It doesn't abide with, they've improved a lot. So those things weren't updated because it doesn't help their course to say, well, if you brake at this speed, you need this amount of space to stop. You go, no, that's from a 1980s car. They didn't update it the opposite way where they said, well, cars have changed, so we can go a little bit faster now because the braking's better. They kept the old braking models, which don't actually work now, but it keeps you getting tickets and it keeps us. So yeah, let's just say you need to go slower to do the thing. Plus, like the speed humps, somebody did a study where roads with speed humps, the amount of pollution goes up by 10. I think the minimum,
by 10 times.
It's 10, minimum to 30. Because
people are stopping and starting.
So you go around Haringey, North London, and there's 10 speeder. Stop. I said, you're killing yourself just living on that road. Mm-hmm. Stop. Vroom, 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 vroom. Brake dust, brake dust, brake dust, brake dust. You're breathing on. I would never live on a street that had speed humps like that because you're just breathing in pollution constantly. The brakes, the brake dust, the brake disc. So to go back to that 20 thing, anyone get in a car at 20 and drive along. Why has this car got 140 miles an hour? Why do that? Why put that on why just ban car? Just say no cars can go over 50. Why not do that? Well, there's money involved there. Big car companies and money and tax and all that. But it's sort of like you're being squashed in the middle. We'll make it so the cars are very attractive. So the big car company get money because they pay the tax and then we get money from them. But then we'll put the speed limit right down here and you'll get fined if you go above that. You go, so I'm just being squashed in the middle of, these cars are very attractive. Look at what they can do. The braking. What about the braking adverts? The car said, no, don't worry about that. We've got these old laws from the 80s that says how long you can brake.
I think it's a very interesting point that you made, that actually I'm surprised that the insurance companies don't make this a requirement. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because they get you to, like if you have a burglar alarm fitted in your house, you have to have that burglar alarm checked. Yeah. It's serviced every several years just to make sure it's active. And then you get a certain amount off your, your insurance policy. I'm surprised the insurance companies haven't got involved and said,
could it be because they get increased premiums if you have an accident?
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me.
They
slightly more incentivized to sort of,
it's money. Whatever it comes down to, it'd just be finances. Where does the money end up?
And people would be in cars less if we had great public transport.
Yeah.
But it's expensive and it's unreliable.
It's getting that way, isn't it? That's the truth. The trains are gone. I was thinking about this with my ticket that I come up to London. That's gone up a good think about a quarter in like the last 5 or 6 years. You know, like it's gone up. It's gone up quite a bit. Because I was thinking, yeah, I used to travel up, and it used to be not that much, and then now I'm thinking, oh, it's creeping up. It's starting to be like.
Yeah, they just flick it up like a 50p every now and again. You won't notice that.
But it's going to be 12% if it goes in line with inflation on the next round.
God.
I was trying to get to Chichester on Thursday, and I'd bought a ticket online some days earlier, 14:05 from Victoria. And at 14:00, there was still no train. Oh, no, they said, we took that train off. It's the 14:35. So 14:35 at 14:30. I went round, got a sandwich here and a matcha latte there. And at 14:30, still no train. Oh, it's been cancelled. And now it's the 15:35. And at 15:35, there were hundreds of us waiting to go through the barrier. We'd all been told it would be over there. At one point, the guard got so frustrated with us, she turned off the screen so we'd go away.
Yeah,
and then they moved the 15:35 that was now the 15:50 to some other part of Victoria, and we just all ran across
2 minutes, and they give you 2 minutes, don't they, warning, so everyone has to just quickly
doors are
run to the
closing
other
now.
side. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just you're being taught, you're being squashed in all points. But again, like my friend says, just let all this happen. The fines, the speeding, everything going up 50p everywhere. Just let it all go up by 50p everywhere. Let the rents go up by a quid every day, and then let the wages stay there. And then just let it get to the point where, like I said before, even the emergency services can't pay the bills, police can't pay the bills, they're struggling. And that's when things change, because the protective services, the protective governments, they can't pay the bills. They're not being paid. They can't pay rent.
This is third world Maoist acceleration policy. We're just pushing to extreme. We'll just make it so awful that the revolution will happen.
One thing's guaranteed, that the greed in the world doesn't stay still. It pushes what it can get away with. It never stays still. So if you don't do something now, then guaranteed next year it'll be a little bit worse. You'll moan and all that along the way, and there'll be some marches and all that along the way, but it'll just creep forward a little bit. And you'll only notice it if we skip forward 60 years in a time machine and go, oh, Jesus Christ, that's where we're going. You go, yeah, and you'll be happy because you didn't see it coming. So it'll just carry on until we crack. I
agree with some of that. I agree with that. Agree with the overarching theme of that, but let me dissect that. Right. I think that we are going to see some problem. I think we are going to see a lot of very angry people next year. I think when fuel bills start to come in, when after especially after a winter, we might have probably going to have a coldish winter. I think when food bills start to bite, when the rates start to bite, when people get their tax bill coming in next April, I think this time next year, you're going to start seeing people very despondent, very angry.
Well, unions are kicking up again. That's all
because most people, I mean, I work for a union. We're piloting to strike.
Yeah.
So I work for a nurses union. So that's a big push we're doing.
But you're in a union. You're in an organisation. Most people are not. Most people are in small companies, working for themselves, getting along, and they've got nobody fighting for them.
Well, this will push that towards that. Unions will start popping. People are just going to get effed off. One person at another person at workplace is going, I'm not putting up with it. I can't do this anymore. I can't pay my rent. And the union will start. Then somebody will hear and they will start a union in a shop, in a thing. And it will just...
Hopefully this raises you start having public sector wage rises. That hopefully that will knock on the private sector as well. You know what I mean? If you raise the standard, then that standard gets raised. You know what I mean? Hopefully.
But somebody was telling me how they're trying to hire a software engineer for their startup, and they just can't afford the salaries being demanded by the people who are doing that kind of work. So at that point, then the model breaks down again. If the thing that you're selling with your small company can't sustain the salaries that are required to pay for the inflated price of a bunch of bananas, then you stop getting the companies. They go out of business. You can't have the industry that pays the tax, that pays the nurses.
But you should. I think people are deserving of a fair wage, and I think people are deserving of decent working conditions. And I do think that that the balance has gone right now. I do think that we are in a point with inflation just going skyrocketing. I think we're in a very dangerous economic position where people are going to be out of pocket. People are saying, I am worse off now than and certainly next year, I think this is what I'm saying next year, I think there's going to be a ton of upheaval and a lot of political pressure, and because most people are okay as long as they're comfortable, as long as they can pay the rent, as long as they, they've got a decent, comfortable life, they can pay the Netflix, they go on holiday, they can get, they can pay for the petrol. Like, I think the average person is going to start feeling squeezed, and they're not used to that. The middle class, this lower middle class, is going to start feeling a lot more squeezed. I mean, I get paid all right, but I'm starting to feel a bit like, this isn't going as far as it used to. And I'm thinking, again, even 4 or 5 years ago, this went a lot further,
Yeah, and it had the problem.
Like
really
100 quid
yet.
isn't really worth much nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, on this, like, really doesn't go very far. And I was thinking, I remember even 5, 6, 7 years ago, 100 quid was decent amount. You could do a bit with that, you know what I mean? But now I'm thinking,
it's just like a graph. You look at all your costs, how much everything costs. It goes up 5 times faster than you earn. So you just go, well, where does that end up in the future? Because you're putting up with it now. This is the complaining bit. Then it's really tough, and then you go, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But that's 4 years away.
What does that do to 18-year-olds coming out of school, or 23-year-olds coming out of university who will never be able to afford a home?
Yeah, forget that. You'll have to be like a very rich person to own a home. So eventually they will sell it. Somebody will sell it, and then they'll go into a studio. Then the studio will go into a room. Then we said before about eventually we'll be like the penny lines when we're just leaning over the lines,
sleeping over a rope.
If you've got no hope that you can at some point raise your own family, have your own sofa in a room where you can watch telly, that's going to make young people very angry.
Yeah.
And
this is what I said. It's let's just get to the point. Let's just get it over with. Let's just get to the point where the marches become bigger and more frequent. You think it's going to be
marches? You don't think it's going to be stabbings on a Saturday night, or in America, incels going into schools and shooting up?
But that's to do with weapon. If the weapons are, depending on what type of weapons are around, yeah. But
but that frustrated anger,
but that's what I'm saying.
In young men is very dangerous.
That alienation. Is that going to be directed? Can you direct that?
But that's more to do with poverty. Yeah. A lot of the people are stabbing it. It's not to do with politics. It's to do with poverty.
But poverty, when you can't you have no hope of ever getting your own home and your own life straight. What have you got? What is society? That all you've got is lawlessness.
Yeah, no. So I come from that sort of world of having nothing, and when you never look at politics, you're just angry at other people next to you. You grab at whatever there. You're not looking down the road. You're just grabbing at the people in your street. You're that small-minded. So yeah, violence will go up. Robberies, muggings will go up, and it will start to spill into the richer areas. You'll notice, because they'll have to branch out to get more money. And when everyone in a street has got nothing, you then go to the next street, and blah blah blah. So that will happen, but that's separate to a society on the whole, because most people aren't stabbing each other. You'll have marches, and the marches will get bigger, and they'll become more aggressive, and then. This is how revolutions are, because the governments don't fix the problem. They fight back. They always go overboard. But then that just funds other people to get involved in, well, you've just killed someone. I mean, we've just written something about society changing. But it's the point. Every government pushes people as far as they can go. And then when people start to become actually violent after generations, they then speed that up by becoming almost authoritarian and trying to clamp down on it, which then just gets other people to go, no. And then that's when the thing happens. But you don't want to deal with that. You want to say, I'm not dealing with that. Let somebody else deal with it. At least I've got a roof over my head. But if you're one of the people that doesn't have a roof over your head, and you've lived on the streets, and you've been in and out of steady accommodation, you've been in and out of jail, you've got nothing. It's the worst situation now. So why not do something?
Well, that's what I'm saying. And to sort of slightly reframe what you just said, is that, yes, it's about several different factors alienating people from society. It's about some groups or some individuals or whatever don't have paths to have that, to have a family, to have a career, to have a job.
You don't think like that.
Some people, it's just that they think that is beyond, not them, but they are unable. Those doors are closed. Those roots are closed, and the more people feel like that, the more, you're right, the more sort of dangerous things can become. It comes, societies do become very
volatile.
And they really do. And this, and I do unfortunately think we are heading for a summer of discontent next year, a winter of discontent. I think next year is going to be the tipping point, unless the government reacts. You know, unless there is a bit of a change. However, I just, as I said, you know, I saw that leadership. I saw the leadership contenders who who will be prime minister. One of those people will be prime minister for next amount of time, maybe next 2 years. None of them had an answer. None of them were even pretending to acknowledge the problem.
It gets one worse every generation.
That was the real takeaway for me. It's just I was stunned that they weren't even giving lip service to this. They weren't giving you like
fake speech about
these are the bad things, and we will stop the bad things, and we will make the good things better.
Well, that's the thing about the so removed. You go,
that,
well, I don't have to put that much effort in because they seem to put up with that. So why even bother put speeches together? Let's just go, look, I am what I am, and we're going to do whatever. That's it, I'm saying. And you go, well, we've got to choose one. And if these lot get in, which they will, then somebody else comes along and go, we didn't even have to go out and do speeches. I'm not going on TV. Just do they do it anyway. They've got to vote for someone. And we've got a big bank of people here that in our thingy that were on our party, which will vote for us. So I'm not even going to go do speeches anymore. Why are we going to do that? I'm not going on TV. Well, cool. That's where it goes. We're not in the worst of it now.
They've already cancelled that. I mean, they had a leadership debate, and they cancelled it because the more they started talking, people were like, oh, these people are awful. I don't want to vote for either of them. And they're like, that's it. They were like, the more publicity
they came up with a story that the presenter had fainted.
Yeah,
well, that was something else. But they actually had another third one scheduled. This was 2 weeks ago, and they cancelled the third one because they said that they were getting negative approval ratings. Because actually, when they put their platforms out, when they sort of presented themselves, this is me and this is my platform to be prime minister, everyone went.
Yeah. Out of the mouth of babes, my 9-year-old said, why is it that if there are only 150,000, she didn't know the number, 150,000 people who can elect the leader of the Tories, she said, why is it on television? Why are we all watching it?
Yeah, it's just...
and that is very true. And they actually had several bits where they were like, I'm talking to you directly, the voters out there. And I was like, you're not talking to me, mate. I'm not a party member. I can't vote.
If I listen to a politician speak, I actually feel, I don't know if it's embarrassment or like I'm being mocked. It's like I feel a bit sick when I listen to them. I can't listen to them talk because it's just like this weird thing that's happening. And do you believe what you say? Who are you talking to? It's like I'm watching someone who's a bit like the mental health problems or something. Like, do you know that I know that you're lying? And do you know that it's like an odd thing? So I can't listen to them.
I'm scamming you. I'm scamming you, mate.
I can't listen to any speech
I'm scamming
with a
you.
politician.
It's fine. Like, you just got to understand that's the little game, little dance we got going. I'm scamming you, and you just accept that I'm a scammer.
Yeah,
that's we played a little.
I physically
game.
Start to feel giddy when they talk, and I think I can't watch this. It hurts to watch this. So Anyway, so look, just so you know, this is what's going to happen. You're going to put up with it. It's going to get a lot worse. You're going to put up a bit more. Crime's going to go up. You're going to start to see private streets closed off a little bit more. They won't fix anything. They'll just try and keep you away from them. A lot more private security, private police will become a lot more bigger thing. Normal streets will start to have policing, private police, like you're seeing now. I mean, I knew a guy nearly 20 years ago who started in North London, who started off one of the first private security firms around Cockfosters and all there. And then you got more of them, you got more of them, you got more of them. So that will just happen. They're not going to fix anything for at least 10 years. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And their security of the rich is going to go up and up and up and up and up. That's what you're going to see. And eventually the walls are going to be so big and so all over the place that it'll be like Northern Ireland in the 70s where you had blocks where you can't go in because of the people who live there.
They used to have I remember that they used to have streets with
concrete blocks,
like walls, like halfway down the streets, separates.
You like private police forces,
the Catholics. I remember that. That's crazy. They only took those down like last 15, 20 years
and
ago.
You'll notice it. You'll see you'll probably see an advert on daytime TV, private security. You'll see it and you'll go, there's the next step. You'll see an advert in the newspaper. You'll see one. It'll say, private police, does your street want to? And then somebody get it, and then somebody else, the crime will go up. Won't fix the problem of poverty. They'll just try and keep people away further, and the gates will get bigger, and eventually you can't go into those streets, you can't go into those houses. Private police will become more, these police don't work. Like privatization, let's privatize, get your own police. These are there all the time. And then those police will become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper till they're on minimum wage, and then there'll start to be crime amongst them. And this is the way it's going to go. So you're not going to do anything for 20 years. I'm telling you now, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse unless somebody says, are we going to do something? No, what we're going to do is we're going to moan on radio and we're going to have little marches every few months. That's all you're going to do. I'm telling you your future until the police force are struggling to pay the bills and they go, well, I'm going to go on the march because I can't afford it. But we're 20 years away from that. So it'll come in stages. But the rich and the government, they will only get worse. It's not going to stay. Whatever you think it's now, it'll be a little bit worse next time, a little bit worse next time, a little bit worse next time, until they are basically, I'm not even going to go and do a speech. Who's the prime minister at the moment? I've got a bloody clue. That's what'll happen. Your kids will go, I don't know, some bloke, this rich bloke, I don't know if there's business.
Oh, no, they'll go, I think I saw them on the telly the other day. What's their name? Pepsi. That's it. Yeah,
Pepsi, yeah. Because what'll happen is they'll become so uninterested.
And Facebook will be prime minister at some point.
They'll sort of want to go to anonymity. They'll want to go, well, people don't care anymore. They're not watching. So let's not have that program. Let's not have that program. Let's not have that. But then you go, well, I don't know. It's something those people that up in I call it the castles. I've joked before about like when you see HSBC and they're castles, they've rebranded them with glass, but they're basically privileged castles.
But weren't they designed like that originally to make people have confidence that they'd look after their money? I understood that was.
I suppose there's a lot of things, but it is an old castle. It's a modern day castle. It's where the rich go that you can't go in, and all the power's up in them things. You don't want to see it like that because it makes you feel antiquated. Like, oh, we're not that put down.
It's a glass. It's a money cathedral.
Yes, I mean when you go to Windsor and there's literally a castle. I've said this before. I don't keep going. When I've sat in a restaurant, I'm looking up at a castle. And I'm going, I'm looking at a castle that human beings lived in. And there was one time where I just saw the light go on in one of the rooms and it just humanized it. I thought, that's not a museum. There's a person in there walking around a castle. And Windsor's got a homeless problem as well. But in a restaurant, I couldn't help but look at this castle and my brain going, there's people live there. There's human beings that go to the toilets are being flushed. It's not
there's
a museum.
Queen that lives there. There's literally not people. There's a queen that lives there. You know, this is like
taxes.
It's like a fairy tale or something.
Your taxes built it, and then they put a wall up to keep you out. And you go, how have we got to this point? Well, that's normal. Why don't you just get them out there and put 500 families in there? There's homeless people lining across the street from. Oh yeah, all the time. So right, so let's move on from the time. So we've. Anything nice? Let's end on something else. What are you up to at the moment?
Well, school holidays.
Yeah.
So,
that's a woohoo. I thought it said.
No, it's great. It's great. So we've got several trips. Lovely friends have lent us houses. So it's a UK summer.
Okay.
We're going to go to Kent for a week and then to Cornwall where we're going to do digging compost.
How are you going to Cornwall? Driving?
We're going to drive.
Oh, okay.
And then we're going to go to Anglesey. And so in Wales. So that's my
Why
August.
Those places?
Friends have all offered us their homes.
All in August?
All in August. So in Liscard, we're going to do compost digging for a friend who's going to go and stay with her boyfriend.
Okay.
Fantastic. And I will never think of compost the same again after what you told
now
me.
You said it. I was going to say a joke and I thought I'll leave it. There's kids involved. And
then come September, hope that all the film, radio, articles I've been pitching in the last few weeks, everybody comes back to their desk and goes, yeah, Gryn, got to have her in. So that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. What are you doing for your enjoyment in your spare time?
Well, this year I took up drumming. And we've taken a break.
I bet you're popular with the neighbours.
Yeah.
I knew for a long time I wanted to get back. I was in a drum orchestra as a teenager, and I knew I wanted it. When my kid asked me, she said, what would you like to do? There were two things. I said, whale watching and drumming. Anyway, at Christmas, we saw, as they were putting on the lights at Archway, there was this group with 4 drums, snares, reps, and sardos, and I went, "That's it!" And so my partner, he bought me for my birthday a group of lessons,
right.
And I waited till there was a space in the Barbican group, and that's where I've been going every Tuesday during term
really?
time, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
just fabulous. 90 minutes.
What's the pull for drumming? Because did you
It's
grow
like
up listening?
choir. Oh, what's the pull?
'Cause I'm
It's
just
very
thinking,
primal. It's very primal.
Yeah, okay.
The orchestra I was in, it was a school orchestra for a composer, Van Gelis.
Yeah.
And he did an album called Heaven and Hell, and our music teacher pulled in his teenage girls, and there were a load of us. I put up the poster recently on Facebook, and within a few minutes all these 50, 60 somethings were going, I was in that orchestra. And so
And
that
what
was
do your
the
kids
first.
say about the drumming?
She thinks it's cool. She
Yeah.
came to hear me play. Oh, so there was a performance in the Barbican,
Right.
and it's an organisation called Drumworks, and they work primarily with young people in schools, and so the adult groups are just an add-on. So there were 150 of us in the Barbican walking through, and I was so nervous. You got knee pads on because the drum's going to be hitting your knees.
Yeah. Oh,
And anyway,
right.
Sadie thought it was just really cool to see her mum playing the drums. And
I don't know if it is. There's something in you. It might just be psychosomatic, but when you hear a lot of drums going, it does something. I don't know if it's just the pressure of the sound.
maybe it's from in the womb, the sound of the voice that you
Heartbeat, the
hear
heartbeat.
outside the womb.
It's a very
perhaps.
primal thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you hear that, like
Maybe
marching,
it is like the
when
heart. When you hear
you've
some-
ever sort of
yeah.
marched with.
It's something. Yeah.
Sounds weird to tell them march about,
Yeah.
but if, I don't know, like I've been in sort of
Yeah.
marches that people had things, and you're sort of getting,
Yeah.
you get pace, and it's sort of, you're getting walking along, and
Maybe
it's
it's the repetition.
yeah, it's repetition.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah.
So for 90 minutes a week, don't think about
Yeah.
Ocado
Yeah,
deliveries
yeah.
or irritating letters from the headmaster.
Yeah.
You just think about counting your way through how many repetitions till the
Yeah.
next thing, and hoping that you're not going to get it wrong in a quiet moment.
Yeah.
That's very embarrassing.
It sounds funny, but you do need something extreme to take your mind off of things. Like you could go and say read a book and all this, but you're still there. When you've got something that's overpowering you, that's the only time when you really let go. Even if
Yeah.
you was watching a film, you're not really relaxing. You're still conscious of things.
That's why I love the cinema as well, because then somehow you let yourself go more with the audience.
Oh, I don't, because, well, the audience is the problem. That's why I can never relax in the cinema. It's just people. Just
No,
they don't
it's a
act right.
different. It's a very different communal experience.
I wouldn't mind if I'd have to, 'cause for me to enjoy the cinema, it would have to be like go and watch some black and white films. So the audience are just of a generation where they sit and they watch and they're not eating. I think I could
Yes.
relax then. If I got someone on the phone and a kid and somebody's coming in late and this and that, and it's just, I can't enjoy it. I've got to just sit and is everyone safe here? Yeah, right. I've got my back to the wall.
Well,
right, I can relax.
Well, it's like watching a football match for me. It's like I very much enjoy watching it at home because you get a better view.
Yeah.
You can go to the toilet. You can even pause it if you're watching it, on a fancy machine or whatever. I don't have to spend £5 for a pint. I've got my cans in the fridge, and it's nice. It's nice and controlled environment. However, there's nothing like being in a crowd. Just
As long as they're
having
acting
that
correctly.
communal.
Yeah.
Especially if you're winning, your team's
Oh,
winning.
the football, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I support Reading, and that isn't a problem really. We're just kind of resigned to it, unfortunately. I always just think of the Homer Simpson bit, and it's hurry up and lose so we can get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's my go-to
Right,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll end on The Simpsons. I think that's taken the sting out of the tail. After, so what else have you got coming up then?
Work-wise?
Yeah.
So I'm the historic consultant on a television adaptation of the book The Tattooist of Auschwitz.
Oh, yeah.
And did a lot of work on that last year. And when they go into production, I hope I'll be busy on that. And I've got an article sitting at The Guardian waiting for they've had a lot of sick people, so the editors have been busy. An article about egg donors and anonymity, which is changing.
Right.
And so there's a follow-up to a piece I wrote 10 years ago.
Right.
So that was a very interesting piece to write.
There's a load of questions I want to ask about that, but we can't.
That's a whole
The next
other-
time. The next time.
Yeah.
But what do you say you're doing the John Lennon thing now?
So I'm researching at the moment.
Oh, okay,
What about the song, the recording of the song "Give Peace a Chance," and it all started when a chum of mine in Jerusalem, a rabbi, one of my favourite people, he said he'd got interested in the line in the lyrics that says bishops and fishops, rabbis and Popeyes, and he wanted to know who the rabbi referred to.
It was in the song. That's in the song.
In the lyrics. And it turns out to be this rabbi, Abraham Feinberg,
Okay.
who came to visit Lennon and Yoko Ono when they were having their bed-in Montreal.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people did. A lot of people
Yeah.
came to visit. And he was a peace activist. His moniker was the Red Rabbi, and Lennon called him the Flaming Red Rabbi. And they even went on local radio or television together. And anyway, so that was like the start. The title of the song had already come up from conversation with some activists, and Yoko Ono just said to them, "Give peace a chance."
Oh, okay.
So that's where the title had come from.
How did you find out about the rabbi thing? What came first, the song, or did you question the song, or did you know the rabbi?
It was the friend of mine saying that he's interested in who this rabbi was.
But why would you think that's an actual...
Look at it.
Well,
So-
just did. He just...
Well, Levy, my friend Levy, said he'd looked into this Rabbi Abraham Feinberg. So I looked him up, and then I kind of built up from there, becoming interested in the 40 people that were in the room during the recording.
Yeah, okay.
And including some Hare Krishna and some other peace activists. And so anyway, that at the moment is where I'm chiseling away, hoping that I'll get sync rights so that I can offer it up and see if there's a story there.
Oh, okay.
And I even came across the fact, I didn't know that there'd been a song recorded, a new version of the song recorded in 1991. Lenny Kravitz did it with Sean Lennon and Yoko Ono's son, during the invasion of Iraq. And they brought it, they had amazing people come for the peace choir, people like Adam Ant and Tom Petty. And why we didn't know about it was the BBC wouldn't play it. So that's a story too, but I've still got to find out why that happened.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that.
Yes.
Good luck with the drumming. If you hear any noise coming from Highgate, especially, probably, but I'm sure it'll be mellifluous. Okay, so thank you very much for coming in today.
Lovely to meet you all.
Really
Thank you
nice
very much for having
chat.
me.
Thank you. And thank you, Kerem.
Here's your story, let's begin. The water's fine, come on, dive in. The future's here, it's right before your eyes. Step by step, you're on your way. You're welcome to a brighter day. Don't you know it feels good to be alive? You could be larger than life.